my favourite headline this morning is Blizzards of Lizards. It's the lead in the Daily Star, which says that frozen iguanas are falling out of trees in the US, whereas you heard in the bulletin they're really still reeling from the chaos wrought by the blizzard of the century. And it's to that we turn next, because travellers on both sides of the Atlantic are scrambling to ensure that their New Year travel arrangements are in place. And we're joined now by the editor of Air and Travel magazine, Eoghan Corry. Good morning to you, Eoghan.
Good morning, Dervla. Happy after St. Stephen's Day. I suppose it's Three French Hens Day is the best way of describing it.
It's that kind of mid-period, post-Christmas, pre-New Year. I don't know if there's an actual official title for it.
St. John the Evangelist, I'm told here. But Three French Hens will be waiting for me later on for dinner. Yeah.
From wrens to hens. Listen, what does Dublin Airport look like this morning? Are there many cancellations at the moment, Eoghan?
No, not at all. They've got through the ice storm in America very, very well. No dramatic delays. We had delays 2-3 hours over the last few days. We lost the Boston flight, but everything's getting in. Everything's scheduled to get out. While within America, there's a lot of cancellations, about 17,000 cumulative cancellations over the last few days. It's onward flights and connecting flights. That's the real inconvenience for Irish passengers. Transatlantic is working.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at headlines here in CNN just saying all of the airlines apologising for flight disruptions, thousands of people stranded by cancellation. So it's not getting to the US, but it might be problems if you're connecting when you arrive, particularly I presume on the East Coast, where much of that storm has really, really hit hardest on.
Yeah, the way it works in America is half of our passengers go into New York. So you'd have a little bit of drama in Terminal 5 in JFK. JetBlue is the big connecting airline for low-cost connecting from Terminal 5. And then the legacy carriers seem to have fared a little bit better than Southwest. What happened during COVID is that the Southwest grew exponentially within America and have now pushed ahead of the three big carriers, Delta, United and American. And something very similar happened in Europe, where Ryanair pushed way ahead of their big rival, which is the Lufthansa Group. When the figures come in next week for the number of passengers carried in 2022, Ryanair will be coming in close to 160 million, and it'll be about 30 million ahead of Lufthansa. That's the extent of the lead. What we saw over the ice storm was Southwest struggling very heavily to cope. They were most of the cancellations, and they even had difficulty contacting their own crew and rostering their own crew. So a bit of a disaster. But in terms of the airlines that we use, we have services from Delta, United, American, and Aer Lingus were well fitted out for this. But they did have their blip of their own. One of their planes went tech on Christmas Eve, and the EI-106, because Dublin Airport closes on Christmas Day, the rescue flight wouldn't have been able to land by the time they got it out and back. So those passengers have been making their way back.
Yeah, they're making their way back. Something that people aren't perhaps too happy with, Eoghan, is the status of the car parks at Dublin Airport, because from what I gather, they're absolutely full.
Yeah, we have a problem at Dublin Airport in that the long-term car parking spaces are down. They're down by about 4,500. It was a big issue during the summer. There were blackout dates when the long-term car parks were filled. Now, there was difficulty booking online for the long-term car parks, and the short-term is quite full, very full at the moment. So we have car park issues, but It's hard to know how much information to give out, because what Dublin Airport have done in the past is blocked the long-term online booking and left a facility where people who show up who are stuck have been able to park there. But don't say I said that.
And where are people parking then, Eoghan, if they're not in any of the car parks?
Yeah, during the summer we had lots of anecdotal stuff on social media of people using car parking spaces around the airport. The very strong advice from Dublin Airport is to use alternative methods to get to the airport, and obviously the long-term policy is to reduce car usage. So I would see a situation developing over the coming years where all the investment into getting people to and from the airport will be in public transport. But as it stands, we do have a car parking problem. I'd expect it to be solved by next summer. I'd expect whoever has purchased Quick Park to have that back up and running. And the other good news this week is most of the Dublin Airport bus services were back up and running that had ceased during COVID. And the one that serves Tala and Maynooth is the latest to be added. That's just resumed as well. So public transport to and from the airport getting back up more or less to where it was pre-COVID levels.
Yeah, and is there a big surge in travel, or is now actually coming up to New Year's Eve, that time of year, is that actually a good time to travel?
It's around 90% of where it was pre-COVID. We expect, looking at the summer slots, because that's all we're dealing with at the moment, what the airlines have applied for, we'll expect it to be pretty much back up to 100%. It's not gone beyond the growth, at the growth levels that we saw in the run-up. There's been a lot of realignment, different types of routes have emerged. For instance, there would have been a very heavy emphasis on London travel, UK travel, a lot very business London, those 21 flights we used to have to Heathrow. So the numbers of flights on some of those trunk routes, which would have been business routes, are down. The Bucket and Spades, the trunk routes to Faro, Malaga, places like that, they're pretty much back to the level that they were pre-COVID. And over Christmas, there is an issue with Christmas that the number of aircraft in the air is reduced from November until March.
I would have thought they would have been increased with everybody trying to get home, but they actually reduced it this time of year.
They reduced during the winter, and it doesn't make sense to put an awful lot of extra capacity in over Christmas. It doesn't for a brief surge of a fortnight. So we have this surge of about a fortnight. It's a little bit different the way Christmas Day and New Year's Day fell this year on the Sundays. That the busiest day in the airport was Friday. And a very good time to book. It's too late for this year, but the cheapest time, because prices soared, particularly the long-haul prices, Australia, places like that, the cheapest time to travel over Christmas is New Year's Eve. Everybody wants to be somewhere to have their Old Lang Syne and their glass of champagne.
Whereas you could be up in the air having your little glass of champagne.
Or even landing 2 hours before. It's amazing. You can save, the prices can be 1/3 on New Year's Eve what they are on New Year's Day. And for anyone travelling long haul, it's a huge issue, particularly if you've got a family of children.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you for that big update this morning, Eoghan Corry, editor of Air and Travel magazine, and Happy New Year to you. Let's take a quick break.
Derval McDonald on RTE Radio 1.